Me and my wife paid $33,661 in rent last year, and this was for a 500 square foot studio apartment in California. Now, in this video, I'm going to walk you through why I feel like this was a good financial decision. I think when people hear that number off rip, they usually think that that was a bad deal. How could you pay that much when it comes to rent, etc.? That's why I created this video. I kind of want to walk through why this was a smart financial decision given our situation, right? So, for context, I put out in a previous video, me and my wife last year, we brought in $289,000. Now, this was not net pay. This was the amount of money we brought in total. Our net pay after taxes, after all of our money went into our different investment accounts, such as our 401ks, my HSA that I have set up for us, was $145,000. When you think of $33,000 that we paid roughly in rent, that only made up 22% of our take home pay, right? So less than 30% of our money last year went towards housing costs. Now, when you think of what we got out of what we spent, it's not a great deal, right? A 500 square foot studio is not great. It's not a lot of like square footage. It's pretty cramped. Everything's pretty confined. So from that, like a value standpoint, like I'm not going to argue with anybody. I don't think that you're getting a lot for that. But when I think of it being a wise financial decision when it comes to keeping our housing costs below 30% of how much we take home, that's really wise. There's been a lot of, financial gurus, a lot of people that have been coming out, with videos that kind of like break down that you want to keep your housing cost anywhere below 30%, 25%, like if you're trying to be like A plus, when it comes to, being financially wise with how you're spending money on like housing costs, that's the amount that you really want to kind of like spend. And so for us, to be able to finish at 22% of our take home pay, um, I feel really good about that, right? We easily could try to go get into something that's more expensive, and up it, right? Like it could be 40% or 50%, but that would just create less margin for us to have extra money take home to spend on other things that we want to do, whether that's traveling, whether that's investing in our taxable brokerages accounts, whether that's having money in savings, whether that's going and trying new restaurants, just enjoying other aspects of living a quality of life, right? So $33,000 on paper sounds like a lot. It is. I know in other places in other parts of the country, people are probably only renting out places for maybe $15,000, $20,000 um, per year. Now, for us, there was definitely studios within the Bay Area that we could have found that would have been less than like what we're paying. The only thing is we would have to live in areas that might have a little bit of a higher crime rate, might not have the best neighborhood, etc. So that's not something we were looking to do, right? Like we love the community that we live in. It's a very safe area. Um, you know, it's a really really good area, and so we're really paying for kind of like the community and the area that we're living. When we think of the amount of money that we're paying on a monthly basis. Now the breakdown for $33,000 in rent is roughly about $2,800 a month. Now that was total cost. That included rent plus utilities. $2,800 is what we're shelling out for rent. Um, and I know that can be like a lot for some people to like think. I know, for some of the people that I know that are like looking for places, coworkers and things like that, when they've asked like, hey, how much like, is the housing cost for like where we stay? And I have no problem sharing it. It's $2,800 for a 500 square foot studio. They're shocked. They would never. They're like, I wouldn't pay those prices. They can't believe that's all we're getting. And I hear them, right? Like it's not like you're not getting a lot like out of that, but you have to understand that the financially wise thing to do when you're in, especially higher cost of living like areas such as the Bay Area, San Francisco, New York, maybe you live in Miami, whether you live in LA, is oftentimes a financially smart thing to do is rent. And you really want to keep your rent 30% roughly of like what you take home so that you create a lot of margin for you to be able to have money to spend on like other things. Um, because you never know. Like if we were to get laid off, if we were to lose our jobs, like it would be one of these things where we could be like struggling because we don't have a lot of money in savings, or we don't have enough money like investments because we put so much money in housing costs. And I think housing costs are pretty overrated, right? Like, kind of the thing that I think about, and I talk about my wife a lot, is if we're logging in so many hours at our job, right? We're at the office, like we're working 45 to 50 hours a week. I'm factoring in like time in the office plus like the commute, right? We're really not at home that much. And to for us to try to, you know, pay for a little bit more, increase maybe the square footage, at the time have tried to move into a one bedroom when it was just us two, just so that we can, say that we have something a little bit nicer, just doesn't make sense, right? Like we're just not at home enough. So it's a better investment for us to rent at the level that we were last year. Now, we recently just moved to a one bedroom. It's in the same apartment complex. It's $200 more, so we're paying about $3,000 total cost. So it's going to go up to about what, $36,000 like per year, extra 3 grand that we're paying per year. But it's because we have our newborn son, right? So we wanted an extra room that way, just a little bit more space because we have like a newborn. But still, with the amount that is, that's going to be less than 30% of our household kind of like income, right? Like our take home pay. And that's how you want to keep it. Like you don't want to be spending this much money in housing costs. The reason that we're doing this too is because long term, like our plan is to move out of the Bay Area. Like if we're looking to buy a house, if we're looking to be able to have home ownership's like a goal of ours, we need to have a lot of money to be able to put for a down payment, for maintenance costs, etc. So we need to be able to free up as much capital as possible right now. And one way that we can do that is by renting at a very low cost, right? Like renting at a low cost. And doing that gives us more margin for us to be able to invest, gives us more money to save. We wouldn't be able to do this if we were just spending so much money on housing costs and we're barely even home. Like we're always like at work. So it just doesn't make sense. Even down the road when we plan to get a house and we move out of California, we're not going to be spending more than 30% like on rent, right? Or mortgage, right? Like we're not that's just not wise. I don't know why people do that. It's the same thing with cars. It's the same thing with just like anything that you're kind of like financing. I don't know why people like to, spend so much or have it consume so much money that they take home, right? Like I'm trying to run our finances. My wife and I are trying to run our finances like a business. We're trying to bring in more money than we're shelling out, right? And one way you can do that, and if you're watching this, is to really be conscious of how much you're spending on rent, right? How much you're spending on the place that you live. You're gonna be making bad financial decisions if you're spending too much. On like where you live, especially if you're not home. Like most people are at work. Most people are spending their time away. And if you're not at work, you might be going out on the weekends. You might have a whole bunch of stuff going on. For us, it's just a place to sleep. And yeah, we want to make it comfortable. We try to maximize the amount of space that we have, the square footage that we have, by trying to keep a very minimalist kind of like lifestyle to maximize the square footage. But we're not going to pay, even though we could, we're not going to pay $4,000, $5,000 for rent, especially because we're not building any equity in it, right? Like the thing about renting that has that the negative connotation that renting gets is you don't build equity, right? You don't own the asset, right? And so for the longest time, people have thought that renting is a scam. It's bad. Right now, based off how the housing market is, especially in major cities like the Bay Area, San Francisco, when you think of New York, when you think of LA, a lot of these places, home ownership is just out of the cards for most people, right? So you have to rent, and renting is with the interest rates and how things are set up. It's actually the better financial decision if you're doing it how we're doing it. If you're keeping the cost below 30% of your take home pay, right? You have extra money to now invest, and it then becomes a good financial decision, right? Because although you're not building equity in the place that you're living, you're having more money that you can put to invest to set you up for a better financial tomorrow, right? So the way I'm able to max out my 401k, like I talked about in a previous video, and I'm going to continue to do for this year, is I don't pay so much rent. The way I'm able to max out an HSA account this year, that's about $8,000 that we're going to be maxing out in that account. It's because our housing costs are so low. If you want more money to invest, one of the first places you have to look at is your housing cost. And so for us, we paid $33,000 last year when it came to renting out a studio in California. We're paying $36,000 now for a one bedroom, only 100 square feet more. We live in a very safe community. We live in a very safe neighborhood. We love our neighbors. It's a good area, and it's temporary, right? Like right now, we're trying to build out a better financial future for tomorrow. And one way we can do that is by being disciplined in this area. So if you're watching this video, I think this is a sign. It's a encouragement that if you're trying to build a good financial future for yourself tomorrow, start with looking at your housing costs. Start with looking at how much you're spending on rent, like how much you're spending to live where you live, right? And figure out like, are you paying too much? I think a safe place is if you're paying, 50%, how do you look for places that are 40%? You trip it down to 30%, right? Get in a good area, get in a good community, and keep your living expenses low. That way that you can invest money into other areas that you have more capital to be able to invest in your 401ks and your different brokerage accounts, that you can be able to save more money or just enjoy life. If you want more money, more cash flow to be able to enjoy just like your day-to-day life, keeping your housing cost down is the first way to do that. So that's all I got for this video. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'm going to continue to make daily videos, just documenting and sharing, being transparent about how much I'm spending, how much my wife's spending living in California on the salaries that we have, as a way of encouragement, as a way of building a community of people that are being financially disciplined. Take care.